Balance. It's something we're all chasing in life, whether it's in your career, with your family, or with your money. We all have priorities, tasks, and problems that we're all trying to balance. This sentiment is no different in the game of basketball. Balancing what to do with the ball in your hands, hoping to avoid predictable tendencies, balancing the idea of asserting your will and ensuring your teammates get involved. Finding balance in your footwork so no shot ever feels off kilter. Some players are naturally blessed with balance in these areas. Some work tirelessly to develop it, and some are never quite able to find that ideal median. Today, we're talking about someone whose career trajectory depends on finding this balance in so many different aspects of his game. This is Jalen Green and his quest for balance. Jalen Green, the number 2 overall pick in the 2021 draft by the Houston Rockets, is an uber-athletic and ultra-confident scoring guard now in his 3rd year of the NBA. The 3rd-year leap has often been a big talking point amongst basketball nerds. It's when you can typically see the true trajectory of where a player's career is heading. For Jalen, that leap might have perhaps just been a step. Despite playing some of the best defense of his career and showing improvements as a playmaker, the scoring that was promised pre-draft wasn't there for most of the season, as his points per game and shooting splits fell. However, recently he's turned a corner in a massive way and spearheaded the Rockets' late push to sneak into the play-in. Since the All-Star break, Jalen is putting up 24 points tonight on 59% true shooting and has a positive net rating of plus 9.9. So the $28 to $38 million question, depending on whose agent you're talking to, is why? Why in a winning structure, with a better coach and better players around him, was Jalen Green playing worse? And what changed? The simple answer is, of course, a lack of balance. I'm going to break this down into 3 parts: usage, aggression, and form. The 3 areas I believe Jalen desperately needs to find balance in order to become the player he can truly be. Let's start with his usage. Coming out of G League Ignite, Jalen Green was presented as this 3-level scorer who'd be able to flourish on and off the ball, a dynamo slasher with thrusters for Cavs who would wreak havoc attacking closeouts, and a silky smooth one-on-one scorer who could break down your best POA defender with ease. When the Rockets drafted Jalen Green, there was a certain experiment going on with a certain guy, believing he could be a long-term point guard. So pairing Jalen Green to be the 2 guard of this experiment seemed ideal. So his rookie year, he played off the ball a lot. And boy, do I mean a lot. He only averaged 8.8 drives per game his rookie season and was 3rd in the team in isolations per game. It was by far the most efficient, averaging 1.02 points per possession, which made him an 80th percentile ISO scorer as a rookie. Steven Silas had taken this dynamo scoring weapon and essentially stuck him in the corner his rookie year. Entering year 2, this drastically flipped. Jalen will become an on-ball focal point and average nearly 15.5 pick-and-roll possessions per game, nearly double of what it was his rookie year and the 6th highest in the entire league. Now just imagine for a moment, going from almost exclusively off the ball, running off of screens, handoffs, cutting to the basket, and majority of the time simply standing off in the corner, to being one of the highest usage ball handlers in the entire association. Now add to that in your 3rd year, having a brand new coach, mainly known for his defensive prowess, and adding a brand new max contract point guard who is right behind you in pick and roll possessions per game. Given that context, it's now easy to see why Jalen Green's role with the Rockets offense early on was a bit confusing. His isolations and handoffs per game were at the lowest of his career. His pick and roll usage hadn't dropped significantly, and his spotted possessions were at league average despite being off the ball more. So what are some solutions? And what has Ime Udoka and staff already implemented post All-Star break? Number 1 is forcing Jalen Green to be on the move. He's consistently among the league leaders in points per possession off of cuts and handoffs, and yet those 2 play types only make up about 11% of his play type diet. It does not take a basketball savant to see that putting a top 1 percentile athlete on the move makes him harder to guard. Number 2 is making a concerted effort to provide him with proper spacing. The Rockets have done a horrendous job, to say the least, rounding out this roster with shooters. And for a scorer like Jalen, whose biggest weapon is the ability to get in the paint, it just allows defenses to completely load up and not fear whoever he'd be kicking out to. Number 3, and something the Rockets have begun doing post All-Star break, is simply to play faster. With young athletes on the roster like Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, and Cam Whitmore, it was baffling for me to see why at times the Rockets were intentionally playing slower. And to address the elephant in the room, no, it was not because of Alperen Sengun. He's displayed plenty of times he's capable of operating at a higher pace. And to clarify even more, playing with pace simply doesn't mean just running up and down in transition. It's mainly getting into your sets quicker. This helps everyone in the Rockets, including Alperen Sengun, as it doesn't allow the defense to sit back, get set, and get a read on whatever action you're about to run. The Rockets staff, to its credit, noticed this and subsequently made a change. Before the All-Star break, the Rockets were smack dab in the middle of the league at pace at 17th. Since the All-Star break, they're third in the league in pace, and it's working. And I mean it's working. Since choosing to pick up the pace, the Rockets are 9-1, the best in the league over the last 10 games, and also hold the fourth highest offensive rating during said stretch. Which leads us to something that falls solely on Jalen Green's shoulders, and our next point of balance, his aggression. With ultra-confident scorers like Jalen Green, the idea that you can be guarded is a bit hard to grasp. Your entire life, game plans have been forged and all have failed on your quest to go get a bucket. Life in the NBA, however, is quite different. The biggest adjustment all young scoring guards will have to make is learning when you've done your job. In Jalen Green's first 2 seasons, he was given a crash course on this, being blitzed off of pick and rolls, given the toughest defensive assignment night after night, and meeting 7-footers at the rim who simply don't care that you're athletic. But through trial by fire, Jalen Green learned. While not always perfect, he began to look more comfortable operating out of pick and rolls, began snaking screens, throwing pocket passes, and developed a nice give-and-go tandem with Alperen Sengun. Now once again we enter year 3, with the same context of a new coach, new scheme, and new point guard. And now with an uncertain workload, this aggression was wavering from game to game. There were nights where Jalen looked the part of a lead guard, throwing skip passes, consistently making the right read, and playing with pace. And others where he was wildly out of control, forcing shots and missing reads he's shown he can make. So what's the solution? Number 1, he desperately needs to tighten his handle. On too many occasions this year, Jalen is seen speeding up to go attack, and the ball simply just chooses not to go with him. In tight spaces around pick and rolls, he can look timid and unsure of himself at times, looking as if he's more worried about getting ripped than actually making the play itself. There are moments in one-on-one situations where you can clearly see the creativity he wants to display. And since the All-Star break, there's been some improvement in this aspect. While not perfect, he's begun to look more and more comfortable dealing with traps and accepting that defenses just don't want the ball in his hands when he's hot. His pick and rolls per game have seen a slight increase as well as his ISOs per game, and it's clear that Ime Udoka is beginning to trust him a bit more with the ball in his hands. Number 2 is continuing to grow out of the pick and roll as a passer. While he is improving, Jalen is far from someone you'd label as a manipulative passer at this point in his career. Majority of his playmaking does simply just come from pocket passes. While that improvement is great, it didn't take long for NBA scouts to realize that's his preferred read. In turn, you began to see teams loading up. Nailed defenders began to creep over more and more as the season progressed, and weak side help defenders were sitting in the paint, realizing he wasn't looking to make that skip pass to the corner. This doesn't just hurt his offense, it also hurts Alperen Sengun's. His lanes off the roll began to shrink, and while he's more than capable of making that pass to the corner, allowing the defense to load up on its roll took away so much of the scoring the Rockets relied on for most of the season. It isn't all doom and gloom, however. Jalen isn't someone I'd ever label as selfish, and he's shown he's more than willing to try these skip passes and kickouts. It simply comes down to him doing it at a higher volume. Number 3 is where it gets a bit tricky, his shot diet. When talking about Jalen Green's shot diet, it's an interesting conversation. He's so gifted as a space creator, the idea of saying, hey, don't go create your own shot is just silly. His bag is full of step backs, side steps, and pull-ups that, majority of the time, he's taking within the flow of the offense. The issue was, he just wasn't making them. Pre-All-Star break, Jalen Green was among the least effective volume three-point shooters in the NBA, shooting 32% on 6.5 attempts a game. The weirdest part of it, he was just missing open shots. He was shooting a staggeringly bad 27.4% on wide open threes and 28.2% on catch and shoot threes overall. Never in my wildest dreams did I envision Jalen Green would be a legitimately bad shooter. And in the last 15 games, he's beginning to prove me right. He's shooting 41.9% on open threes, 37.9% on the catch, and 39.7% on pull-ups while taking these same side steps, step backs, and pull-up jumpers. Consistently hitting these shots is what will determine the type of leash Jalen is given in the future regarding his shot diet. Do I think he'll be a 40% three-point shooter like he's been these last few weeks? Probably not. But do I believe there's a good chance he's hovering around 35 to 36%? Yeah. For me, the more important and impressive part of his development has been his scoring from inside the three-point line, and this goes back a lot further than just 15 games. Jalen has always been good for the highlight finish. The acrobatic layups and jaw-dropping dunks were always going to come from an athlete of his caliber. What's gone unnoticed is how he's simplifying his finishing around the rim. It's a whole lot less inside hand finishes and attempting to find ways to finish around contact. Instead, he's beginning to invite the contact, absorbing bumps and finishing through it. Since January 1st, he's shooting 65% in the restricted area, up 7% from the 58% it was up until December 31st. He's figuring out how to finally weaponize his athleticism as a finisher, which has led to easier opportunities on the perimeter as teams become fearful of him just simply blowing by and finishing at the rim. His scoring from the mid-range also took a massive leap as the calendar turned. From the beginning of the season until December 31st, he was shooting 30.9% from the mid-range on 68 total attempts. Since January 1st, he's shooting 45.6% on 79 total attempts. This ability to score from all three levels makes Jalen basically unguardable when he's hot. When you combine his first step, ability to finish at the rim, shooting off the catch and bounce from mid-range and three, what coverage are you supposed to throw at him, besides a double? And are you seriously going to double if Alperen Sengun is the roller? Are you going to give an offensive engine in his own right the ability to feast as a short roll passer in 4-on-3 opportunities? Now, all of that sounds great, but it doesn't matter if he's not hitting shots, which leads us to our next and final point of balance, his form. Jalen Green's jump shot form has already seen more tweaks and iterations than I could honestly care to count for in his short NBA career, and I really don't know why. Coming out of Ignite, he was shooting 36% from three, and there were no glaring issues with his form. Obviously, an NBA shooting coach knows more than me, and he's going to go in and try and make the tweaks he feels necessary. The only issue I really noticed was that he's a thumber. That just means that he's pushing his thumb out on his guide hand, which can lead to a funky release off the ball at times. You'll see like a corkscrew-like spin, and it can cause your shot to go offline and you'll hit side rim. So I sat down and watched all 85 of Jalen's three-point shot attempts I could find from January 1st to January 20th. And 32 of those 62 misses that he had during that span either rolled in and out or hit side of the rim. Adding to that, Jalen does have a tendency to drift or shift his body over and his legs to the left. So of those 32 misses I mentioned above, 25 of them hit the side of the rim. And take a wild guess which side 22 of those 25 hit. Obviously the left side. The reason why at times he's so far left is because of the dip he has when he gathers the ball. His hands are on the smaller side, and you'll see him overcompensate by this by kind of sliding his hand under the ball and then bringing it to the side. I've begun to notice he looks more comfortable and natural shooting off of right hand pull-ups, and when the pass forces him to catch it in his shot pocket on the right side. But like I'm saying this entire video, it all comes back to one thing with Jalen, and it's of course balance. Because of how gifted he is at creating space, there are times when his body is simply off balance when creating set space. The massive difference you'll notice in this recent stretch is that his shot seems to be perfectly on balance majority of the time. It's a lot less weird leg kick outs, drifting to one side, and not having your shoulders square. His feet are set, his moves are leading directly into his shot pocket, and his shoulders are square to the basket most of the time. I remember seeing something about his shooting workouts in the summer. There were plenty of shooting drills he was doing that was focused solely on this, on him being balanced while shooting. Bill Sullivan has been heralded as an amazing shooting coach who's helped guys like Derek White improve their shooting numbers, so I don't doubt he's been breaking down Jalen's form and looking at ways he needs to be tweaked, but the most important thing for Jalen regarding his shot will always be to take these shots on balance. The recent developments Jalen has shown lead me to believe that he's starting to really find this balance I've been talking about. If he's truly able to do it, he'll very quickly become one of the league's best young players and begin his journey to the lofty expectations a lot of us had from pre-draft. As for the Rockets, it completely changes the outlook of their team. Being able to pair a dynamic and efficient scoring guard with Alperen Sengun while still having prospects like Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason, and whatever pick that they might end up with if they choose to keep the Nets pick this year, easily makes them one of the best bets to be a future contender in the West. The roadmap on this quest for balance has been laid out for Jalen Green, and obviously if I'm saying this, then the geniuses at the Rockets coaching staff definitely know more than me, and I've already sat down with him, showed him film, and you can already see that by how he's progressed through this season. I have no clue what Jalen Green will be, and I'm done guessing what exactly he will be. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy the ride and see what type of player he turns out to be. If you made it to the end of the video, I want to sincerely thank you. Comment down below if you think this recent hot stretch is just that, a hot stretch, or is Jalen Green finally turning a corner? Comment down below other players you want to see breakdowns on. Like, comment, I already said that. Share, subscribe. What am I missing? Hit that noti bell. Follow me on Twitter or X and Instagram. Links in the description. I think that's all the propaganda, right? We out.